There's a post-liberal crowd who says, we tried liberalism, it failed, time to move on to the next thing. Fukuyama was wrong, Huntington was right. But I mean, that dichotomy, we can get into that too. But what do you say to and of and about this post-liberal? You know the contingent to whom I'm.
Yeah, we've
referring.
had Curtis Yarvin on the show.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, I think he makes a lot of sense, and I think you know, a benevolent dictatorship is great. The problem is, how do you keep it benevolent? That's really the problem. And so the point of democracy isn't that it's a perfect system. The point of democracy is you can remove the people in power. That's the point. Look at Twitter, right? Twitter has become a benevolent dictatorship under Elon Musk. And it's a lot better, in my opinion, and improving rapidly because of it. But you cannot run a society on that basis, because the temptation is for the dictatorship to become malevolent pretty quickly. Power corrupts. And also,
even if they think, no matter how virtuous you start, you think by design of authoritarian, of not having democracy, of not being able to be removed, no matter how good you are, you will eventually become bad.
Not necessarily.
Because of design.
No, look, you're going to get your Marcus Aureliuses and your good kings every now and again. But as a system of government,
it's designed to not produce, in the long term, good outcomes. It doesn't allow for good outcomes, because it doesn't allow you to replace the bad parts of the engine as they need to be replaced.
And it puts people in a position of power who have a disincentive to being benevolent, on the one hand. On the other hand, if you're intellectually honest, you have to recognize that the problem critics of the liberal worldview are identifying is not inaccurate. I mean, if you feel that the electoral system no longer produces outcomes that reflect the opinion of the majority of the public, which is where we are, right? Are you telling me that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are representative of America? Are you telling me that the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in this country represent the values of British people by and large? They represent the consensus idea of the best way to move forward. We have people from the left in here, and we ask them, are you excited about the idea of a Labour government? This is after what will be 14 years after a conservative left government in this country. None of them are excited about their own party coming in. You get a conservative in here and you say, are you excited about the government as it is, the conservative government? None of them are excited about the conservative government either. So the critique is based on some factual observations, which is where we've got to a position where the political system produces candidates that don't represent the values of the country or the way of doing business that most people would want. And that's the problem. And that's why you're seeing people talk about, well, we should have a benevolent dictatorship. I don't agree with them that that is the system that we need, because I don't think that works, because I don't think you're going to be able to have benevolent dictators over and over. You're going to have maybe one, and the next one is going to be malevolent. But I think they're right that the system of government we currently have, mainly as a product of mass media and then social media, produces these bland, unrepresentative people who have to pander to the 24-hour news cycle instead of actually doing courageous things and leading. That's a problem. We shouldn't pretend it's not a problem. It is a problem.
I agree that it's a problem, Konstantin.
Yeah.
The question is, of course, what do we do about it? You know, could you have Churchill today with the 24-hour news cycle and Twitter?
Right.
Would a person like that, can a great
Well,
leader
we don't
step
know,
up?
because the way that the current system is, so I don't know what the case is in America, but in this country, you have to be a member of one of the two parties to make any sort of political impact, right? And
of course, we have two parties.
And by the time you get to the top of a party, you've already had to swallow so much that you might as well keep swallowing. You know what I mean? So we generally don't know what would happen if someone with principles and the desire to stand up for those principles attempted to pursue a leadership role. We just don't know.
Sure we do. People run for president all the time, and they they don't win because they're not a member of one of the two parties. I'm not thinking of anyone in particular. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you want to win, you have to be part of one of the two.
So eventually we may get fed up with that system and come up with something that allows people to come through. I mean,
But hold on, we can't just skate past that. Come up with what? We have a constitution in the U.S. anyway. We have a constitution. We have a good system. With that has in recent years, perhaps because of you pointed to mass media would be one thing, 24-hour news cycle another. Overhaul, I don't necessarily think is the answer. I don't think it's an effective answer. How do we, within the system that we have, create better outcomes?
you can't.
You are in favor of a more revolutionary approach?
No, not at all. The thing that we have to change, I talked about mass media and social media. We have to change the media landscape for this to change. You have to create platforms.
So media would be the culprit, or one of the big ones.
This isn't me saying, the corporate media is blah, blah, blah. Those systems of communication encourage a particular way of doing politics and a particular way of doing business. You're not going to get a conversation of this nature happening on a mainstream platform, which is amazing to me because these are highly clickable, profitable ways of communicating online. But the mainstream media isn't really doing that much.
Yeah.
But what you have to do, in my opinion, is to change the media landscape where people are able to have conversations in a different way and people are talking about politics in a different way. And they're not trying to gotcha everybody all the time, and they're trying to encourage people to show the best version of themselves. Once you establish that there is a media ecosystem that encourages people to act in a different way and to show up in a different way as leaders, as politicians, etc., then there will be a body politic that votes for those people, that has an appetite to see those people coming through. And you're starting to see this. I mean, whatever you think of the candidates themselves is kind of irrelevant here, but whether it's RFK Jr. or Vivek or other people who are kind of products of new media, really, in many ways, right? Those people, whether you like those particular candidates is kind of irrelevant. My point is, we're going in a direction where increasingly, Vivek is a former guest of Trigonometry, right? He did the podcast.
And the Quillette podcast.
And the Quillette podcast. He did all the rounds.
Yeah.
He sharpened his thinking. He got himself onto this very small part of the map as it is now. The bigger our section of the map becomes, the more I think you're going to find that people are able to speak to a different audience, and that audience follows them into the real world and is therefore voting for them and following what they do, etc. So I think that's part of the solution, and it's about changing the media ecosystem, which is what I intend to do.
Well, you're already doing it.
And I intend to continue.